Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's Burning Clay, and I am back with another Digimon TCG video. Now, today, what we're going to be looking at is a deck profile from the upcoming BT8 release, and this is going to be all about Shivamon the Destroyer. This is a deck that I'm personally really excited about. I like the way it plays. It's definitely a unique style, and I think it's kind of getting overlooked as everybody kind of, stays on the hybrid hype train. And then most people are excited about the Armored Purge Champion Rush style that is going to be coming out of BT8. But I definitely like this Shivamon style of play as well. It's definitely unique, where green likes to suspend a lot of the opponent's Digimon, but this deck here more or less wants to actually suspend your own Digimon in order to make your higher level Digimon more powerful. And it does leave you at a bit of risk when it comes to your opponent's turn, but it's something that hopefully we're able to capitalize on. So without further ado, let's get into this deck profile. Now up first, we're going to look at our Digitama, and the first Digitama that we're going to be running are going to be 4 copies of Argomon. This Argomon has the ability to, or the inherited ability to, when your Digimon becomes unsuspended during your unsuspend phase, you gain 1 memory. And like I mentioned, we are going to be looking to suspend our Digimon to make other plays more powerful. So being able to capitalize when we unsuspend at the beginning of our turn is only going to make this deck run more consistently. At that point, we can definitely start to take a huge advantage when it comes to the memory counter, allowing us to hopefully be making more plays on our turn to really put our opponent at a disadvantage and more or less just swarm the board with bodies to where we can make quick work out of our opponent's security, depending on what we have on the board. So 4 copies of Argomon, BT2 to start us off. And we're going to finish off our Digitama with 1 copy of BBmon. Now this is from the upcoming BT8 release, and it has the inherited ability of, on your opponent's turn while all of your Digimon are suspended, this Digimon gets 1000 DP. Now, like I said, we are trying to suspend our only Digimon, and I mentioned how that kind of leaves us vulnerable to our opponents in their plays on their turns. So being able to boost your Digimon up even slightly on your opponent's turn can hopefully make it a little more difficult for them to remove our Digimon from the field, especially our higher level Digimon that are more powerful. Moving on into our level 3s, and we're going to first be running 2 copies of Tintomon. Now this is the starter deck Tintomon, 3 to hard play, 0 to digivolve on top of our Digitama, but it has the on play ability to reveal the top card of our deck, and if it's a green Digimon card, we can add it to our hand, otherwise place it at the bottom of our deck. Now we are only running green Digimon in this deck, so we don't have to worry about missing out much unless it's one of the option cards or a trainer or a tamer, sorry. So this is just to add a little bit of consistency, allow us to hard play a Digimon, but then at the same time get that card draw off and kind of cycle through our deck a little bit. Now I am also going to be running 4 copies of Goblin. Now this is from BT1. This is just our 2-drop vanilla, and really it's there because, like I mentioned, we're looking to suspend our own Digimon. The more Digimon that we have in play on the field, the quicker that we can kind of get into our megas and then take advantage of the rest of the Digimon being suspended. So my thought process is, while we miss out on some potential inheritables that we could get from other cards, I like the fact that this is just a cheap 2-drop. We could potentially be playing multiple Digimon on one turn, depending on how much memory we have set up. And at the same time, it gives us that ability to potentially choke our opponent on their memory, as long as they don't have a memory setter on their side. So being able to swarm the field with cheap options to hard play if we can't get them off onto our Digitama is just nice, in my opinion. With that same thought process in mind, we are also going to be running 4 copies of the level 3 Argomon. Now this, like the Goblin, is just a 2-drop vanilla, And same story here. I'm just looking to be able to have as many cheap cards as I can get out onto the field to be able to swarm our field with as many bodies as possible, really take advantage of some of the plays that we'll be making with our higher level Digimon, and then just have more options for us as well to Digivolve on top of. So again, I know we're not really gaining anything from it being just a 2-drop vanilla other than it's just a cheap option for us to play. Now we are going to round out our level 3s with 4 copies of Pulsemon. Now this is going to be coming from the upcoming BT8 release, and this is your standard 3 to hard play, 0 to Digivolve on top of the level 2. No native abilities, but it does have a nice inherited ability that on all turns that this Digimon can get 1000 DP for each of your other suspended Digimon. So not only will this help us when it comes to potentially attacking our opponents, but then when we're on the defensive and our opponent has a board full of suspended Digimon, being able to increase our Digimon strength with this card is going to be key to kind of help us protect our stronger Digimon and keep them on the field to make our more impactful plays. Now moving on into our level 4s. The first card that we're going to be looking at is going to be 4 copies of the level 4 Argumon. Now this Argumon is a 2-cost Digivolve, but it has the native ability of Digisorption 2. So as long as we have another card in play, we can suspend one of those Digimon to reduce the memory of this Digivolution by 2, thus making it a free cost to Digivolve. This is just a nice play because it does play into our trying to suspend our own Digimon for the betterment of our stronger Digimon, and then it just gives us a cheap option to be able to really speed up into our higher levels, and then at the same time control the pace of the game, keep us in control, really limit the amount of damage that our opponent can do by limiting the amount of memory they get to play with. Now we're also going to be running 4 copies of Exerman. Now this is another Digimon that's coming from the upcoming BT8 release. Again, it is just a 2-cost to Digivolve, 5 to hard play, so if we had to hard play it, it's not awful. But it also comes with a nice native ability of when Digivolving, we can suspend one of our Digimon to suspend one of our opponent's Digimon. So again, we could benefit ourselves by having one of our Digimon suspended, but then at the same time we get the added benefit of suspending one of our opponent's Digimon, thus making it able to allow us to make some plays, reduce the amount of bodies onto from our opponent's side, or even possibly get around like a pesky blocker or something like that. Then, on all turns, much like the Pulsemon, this Digimon gets 1000 DP for each of your other suspended Digimon. So we're not only are we strengthening this Digimon on its own as we move up in the evolution cycles, but we're also allowing it to be a more defensive Digimon, a bulkier Digimon on our opponent's turn, just keeping it on field a little bit longer in helping with the longevity of some of our cards as we try to get up into our level 5s and level 6s. Finally, we're going to round out our level 4s with 4 copies of Kogamon. Now this is another BT8 release, and this has a nice purple-green dual colored card, so if you wanted to throw any sort of purple variant in there, you could. I don't really think that's going to be the play here. Like I said, everything that we have is going to be green colored, but because we do have access to the purple, it gets that nice purple ability of inheriting retaliation. So then again, if we're suspended on our opponent's turn, even if our opponent is stronger than us, they might not necessarily want to be taking the risk of taking our strong bodies off, because then they'll have to lose their strong bodies as well, as retaliation allows us to delete the opposing Digimon if we lose a battle. So this will just be a nice card to have in your back pocket for this deck. Get it underneath one of our strong Digimon, that way as we continue to make plays, it is protected on our opponent's turn. Next, we're going to move into our level 5s, and the first level 5 that we're going to be looking at is 4 copies of Climon. Now, this has the native ability of when Digivolving, this Digimon is suspended, or if this Digimon is suspended, we get to return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon with DP less than or equal to this Digimon to its owner's hand. So even though we could suspend one of our level 4s for a benefit of any other play, say it's a digisorption or anything like that, then we could still digivolve on top of that suspended Digimon to then enact this effect of Climon, which it's always nice to be able to remove a pretty powerful body from our opponent's board, considering that Climon is an 8000 DP Digimon. So at that case, most level 5s are going to be in play, pretty much all level 4s. Any blockers that would be on the field would be in play for this as well. Now it also has a nice inherited ability of when this Digimon becomes unsuspended on our unsuspend phase, we can then suspend one of our opponent's Digimon. So if we have it on, say, our Digitama Agumon, not only are we gaining a memory, but then we get to then control our opponent's Digimon, suspend it, put them at a bit of a risk. Again, this could be a blocker to help us really start to hammer away at security, or to just get rid of a Digimon that could be an issue later on. So say we have one of our Megas on the field, there's a level 5, we have a feeling that our opponent has one of their boss monsters in hand for their next turn. Suspend that level 5, attack it, get it off the board, make the opponent unable to really make the plays. So it's a nice card, a nice effect, and being that it can capitalize on, especially when it's digivolving, it can capitalize on already being suspended, just works really well with the rest of the deck. Alright, next we're going to be running 4 copies of Piston. Now this again is another BT8 card, and this one comes back to our digisorption. So while it is a 3 cost to digivolve, we can use digisorption for -2 and reduce the cost down to 1 to go into our level 5. Again, really just speeding up us being able to get into our Megas. Again, this is why I really like the idea of using just 2-drop vanillas, because if we have a 2-drop, put 2-drop vanillas down on the field, then we can suspend one, go into Agumon, and at that point we are at a level 4 with only 4 play cost. And then if we have another Digimon already out on the field, we can go into Piston, do that, and then we've only used 5 to get up into our level 5 on this one. So it really allows us to use everything to the full effect, being able to swarm the field if we get into our boss monsters. And then on the next turn, if our opponent hasn't done anything with our weaker Digimon, suddenly we have a wide board. We could really go hard into security, and even if we lose 1 or 2 of our lower level Digimon, we could do enough damage to really put them at a disadvantage, and maybe even threaten critical in just 1 more turn. So being able to have this digisorption just really works well. And then it has the nice inherited ability that, again, on all turns, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP for all of your other suspended Digimon. So again, much like some of the other cards from BT8, the Pulsemon and the like, and the Exerman level 4, we're looking at being able to boost our Digimon based on having a wide board that is suspended. We are also going to be running 1 copy of the level 5 version of Agumon. Now this is a 3 cost, much like our Piston, but unlike our Piston, this one has digisorption -3. So we could actually digivolve into this one for free if we have another Digimon on the field that we can suspend. But where this one will come in handy is that it gives us the inherited ability of that whenever we attack, we can play a level 3 green Digimon from our hand, suspended, without paying its memory cost. So yes, it's suspended, yes, it's vulnerable to our opponent's attacks, but as you'll see, the more Digimon that we have suspended, the better off we're going to be as we get into our level 6s. Again, we can only wear 1 copy because this card is restricted, but being able to throw it in because it does synergize so well with what the deck is trying to do is a no-brainer in my opinion. Now we're going to get into our level 6s, and we are going to be running 2 copies of the level 6 version of Agumon. Now it is a 5 cost to digivolve, but this one, much like all the other Agumon, has digisorption, where it's digisorption -3, so we can reduce this by 3 to make it a 2 cost to digivolve. And then on our turn, for each of our other suspended Digimon, this Digimon gains security attack +1. So this could really come in handy, being our big sweeper at the end of the game, knocking out our opponent's security, and then if hopefully we have at least one more to attack with it, we could attack our opponent directly. And it really just synergizes well, in my opinion, with everything else that's going on. The digisorption, we're really trying to turbo up into it and then trying to flood the board to where we can then suspend it and make bigger plays for our boss monsters. Now we are going to finish up our Digimon with 4 copies of Shivamon, so Shiva the Destroyer. It is a 4 cost to digivolve into, so it's a little expensive, but hopefully with some of the other memory shenanigans that we can pull off with this deck, we'll be able to digivolve into it and still make plays on the same turn. Now on our opponent's turn, this has the native ability of while all of your Digimon are suspended, your opponent can't use option cards. So that's a nice way to kind of protect us from any sort of, like, say, hard play Gaia Forces or anything like that. But then on our turn, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during our unsuspend phase, we get to trash the top card of your opponent's security. So again, we're going to try to suspend this bad boy. Hopefully we have enough protection underneath it with some DP boosting that it is not super vulnerable to our opponent's attack. I mean, we are talking about 12k DP base, so being able to DP it up to, you know, maybe 15, 16k, we should be safe from pretty much anything at that point. And then the fact that our opponent can't use option cards to try to get rid of it or reduce its DP value only protects it even more. So being able to then trash one of the opponent's security cards is also big, not just, you know, getting rid of it, but trashing it, meaning we don't activate any of the abilities. So then we don't have to worry about any sort of option cards going off with this to kind of derail any plays that we might be making. Now we're going to get into our only option card that we're going to run with this deck, and that is going to be 4 copies of this BT8 option card all around Shivamon. I'm not going to try to pronounce this because I will butcher it, but it is only a 1 cost to use, and it has the main ability that allows you to not only suspend one of your Digimon, but that allows you to then suspend one of your opponent's Digimons or Tamers, and then that Digimon cannot unsuspend until the end of their next turn. So that just makes them more vulnerable, and just, again, we're able to suspend ours Digimon to make ourselves stronger and then make our opponent more vulnerable, and then we don't even necessarily have to attack that Digimon that is suspended because they're not going to be a threat to us on our opponent's next turn. And then, as you'll see with one of the other option cards we have, we could possibly be playing this for free, which is always nice. It also has a nice security effect that allows us to suspend one of our opponent's Digimons or Tamers. That doesn't prevent them from unsuspending, but we're talking on our opponent's turn anyway, so it's going to be the same scenario where they can't unsuspend to the end of their next turn anyways. But it just being able to also attack the Tamers if we wanted to, I think, is a nice effect from this card. Now we're going to get into our Tamers, and we are going to be looking at 3 copies of Mimi. Now this is our memory setter Mimi, so we're going to try to make sure that we're always starting at 3, but it also has the nice effect that as long as we have a level 5 or higher Digimon in play, we can suspend this Mimi to hatch a Digi-Egg, or we can move one of our level 3 or higher Digimon from our breeding to our battle area. If we already had like a Digitama in play, you can't bring that out, but then you digivolve on top of it and then suspend Mimi and then bring it out later on. Security effect just allows you to play the card without paying some memory costs. As always, this is one of the more powerful green tamers, and it just kind of plays into that swarming effect that we're trying to get with this card with some of our smaller level 3s and whatnot, to really be able to swarm the field, take advantage of having enough bodies to then suspend, and then all those bodies being suspended, helping our boss monsters with some sort of DP boost or attacking. Finally, we're going to wrap up this deck with 2 copies of Izzy. Now this is the starter deck Izzy. It is only a 2 cost to play. and it has a nice effect that on your turn, when one of your opponent's Digimon becomes suspended, you may suspend this tamer to gain 1 memory. So we should be able to use this during our unsuspending phase if we have any ability that allows us to then suspend our Digimon. If we have our Climon that is suspending one of the opponent's Digimon on Digivolution, we can suspend this and then gain a memory. Same thing for our option card. If we play our option card, suspend us, suspend the opponent's Digimon, suspend Izzy, and then basically it's for free, potentially allowing us to continue our turn. So this just kind of flows in with it really nice, and I like how, you know, the card option to continue to help us control the memory and really control the pace of the game. But that'll do it for this deck profile. I do think that there are a few cards that you could probably add in. You might could do away with some of the Argumons to, you know, put some other cards in. I know there are some 3-cost champions out there. Roachmon comes to mind in green. There's another one, I can't think of the name off the top of my head. Came out in BT6 where it's just a 3 to hard play and 2 to Digivolve. If you can find some of those would be a good fit in my opinion, because again, it's just a cheap cost to allow us to get an extra body on the field. And then on top of that, those cards would be level 4s to allow us to get into our level 5s and highers even quicker. A couple of option cards you could always go with would be your Needle Spray. Again, allowing you to suspend your opponent's Digimon. It's only a 2-cost, I believe. What is it? There was a Dino Memory Boost that came out recently in BT7 that allows you to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, I believe, on play, and then obviously you have the memory boost later on that can be played. So there are a few other options and a few different ways that you can go with this deck. I do like this one just because it's more, in my opinion, it flows well with being able to not only have enough bodies for you to take advantage of suspending, but then it also provides you with some good protection on your opponent's turn to try to make sure that you actually are being able to stay on the field as you attempt to get into your higher levels. But that'll do it for this deck profile and this video. I hope you enjoyed. As always, get down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Anything that you would change, any tweaks that you could see. Do you think that this would be a viable deck in the upcoming meta? I definitely want to build this deck. I'm definitely looking forward. I do love playing green, so this will probably be a deck that I try to make. But I would like to know everybody else's opinion, if they think it's viable, what do you think of the deck overall? But that'll do it for this one, like I said, and until then, we'll catch you in the next video.